Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you all have had a wonderful summer. So the theme that I chose is summer treats, or maybe frozen summer treats. Essentially, they all have to do with ice cream. One of them is a little more diverse in the summer treat arena, and I didn't have any ice cream mugs. Sorry, but I have iced coffee if that counts. Let's get into the books that I picked out for these months. The first book we're going to look at is The Ice Cream Man. The second book is The Midnight Fair. And lastly, we have Francesco Tirelli's Ice Cream Shop. Okay, let's get into our first book. Looking at the story, set in 1850s Philadelphia, Augustus, or Gus, Jackson pushes his ice cream cart down a sunny street. He hears children shout, "Ice Cream Man!" This moment brings him back to his personal journey. Born in 1808, rural Pennsylvania, Gus grew up in a poor but hard-working family. From an early age, he loved cooking and hoped to use this skill to lift his family. At 12, he left for Washington, D.C., where he then worked at the White House. Here is where he met his mentor, Jenny Trigger. She told him, quote, "Work hard and I'll make you a cook." He learned how to milk dairy cows, tend a garden, and eventually become a cook. This is where he mastered his frozen dessert. By 17, Gus specialized in ice cream, delighting White House guests with his creations. But he had a bigger dream, wanting to make ice cream for everyone, not just the elites. In 1832, back in Philadelphia, he invented a breakthrough freezing method, adding rock salt to ice in a wooden box. This cut freezing time in half. This allowed him to serve ice cream faster, experiment with flavors like rum and butter pecan, and even ship it without melting. Now 1850s, and as he pushes his cart down the street, he realizes his childhood dream has come true. He has brought smiles to both the rich and the poor with each scoop of ice cream. Okay, let's talk about some themes of this book. I love a good dreamer story, and what I specifically appreciated about this particular dreamer story was his dream wasn't centered around himself, his own mastery of the culinary skills, or his business success. It was primarily driven by something bigger than himself, this desire to use his gift to help the lower class. Even with kids' books, if it's going to be a historical story, they won't usually shy away from some of the darker details. However, it still felt like a story filled with hope. This hope could be seen in the attitude that he chose to carry. He found a passion for cooking in the middle of poverty. He honed his skills while working at the White House. He saw the racial and class division, but chose hope instead of bitterness. He attempted to use his own skills and gifts to soften and mend the division. Having a purpose bigger than yourself, I think that's the best kind of dreamer story that you can write. A+ in terms of the theme there. Lastly, let's get to the illustration. I believe there was a mixture of actual photographs mixed with illustrations, which gave the book more realistic quality. Kind of reminded me of the Impressionist French cafe paintings, where the setting is often blurred while particular faces are clear, which allows them to pop out and it directs your attention to the actual subject. I was a bit thrown off by the added bits of photography. I just thought they were oddly placed. I do understand that in historical stories, adding photos can be a tool to maintain some kind of historical accuracy. However, it felt like a cop-out for having to illustrate everything. So I wish they would have just illustrated it all, or maybe used more photos for people. Anyways, that's the Ice Cream Man. Secondly, we have the Midnight Fair. Getting into the story, as the last fairgoers drift away and night settles over the empty fairgrounds, a quiet stillness takes hold. Until glowing eyes peer out from the trees, a raccoon slips through the fence, flips the main switch, and suddenly the fair springs back to life. Drawn by the light and sounds, woodland animals cautiously emerge from the shadows. Under the cover of darkness, they explore the fair. Deer ride the spinning swings, badgers race bumper cars, and foxes sneak off with sweet treats. Everything is just how it was, only now the visitors move on four legs. As dawn nears, the animals vanish into the forest once again, leaving leaving behind acorns and berries where coins once were. In a quiet final gesture, a young wolf returns a prize goldfish to the lake, and the fair slips back into silence. Okay, let's talk about the themes. I definitely could foresee some kids being creeped out. However, it's refreshing to see authors not sticking to this cookie cutter formula of a very clean plot and very obvious morals or lessons. If you've ever read Something Wicked This Way Comes, you'll see a lot of similarities. There's a part of the fair that's magical and mysterious to children, but then there's this other side that's eerie and very unsettling. The balance of spookiness but also wonder. That's the only way circus books need to be written. The Greatest Showman, diabolical, get behind me Satan. I love spooky circus books. That's all I'll say. Let's get into the illustrations. What makes this book so visually striking is the vibrancy of the color palette. So some examples, the glowing signs, the string of light bulbs, the highlights of neon green and pink, the pastel treats. Delicious, just delicious. The combination of watercolor's natural dreaminess with this pop of brightness and vibrancy kind of adds to the uncanny atmosphere of the book. It adds to that combination of wonder and terror. Okay. Lastly, we have Francesco Tirelli's ice cream shop. As a boy, Francesco Tirelli loved ice cream. When he grew up, he moved to Budapest and opened his own ice cream shop. He became friends with a boy named Peter, who often visited and shared his love for sweet treats. However, when World War II spread to Hungary, life changed. Francisco closed his shop for the winter, but instead of leaving it empty, he quietly used it to hide Jewish families, including Peter's. The shop became a secret shelter, and during Hanukkah, they used an ice tray to light candles together in the back room. Years later, Peter remembers Francisco's kindness and bravery and helps honor him for protecting those in need during the war. Let's talk about the themes. I really like when historical events are told through small personal stories. It makes history feel a lot more real. When it's just names and dates on a timeline, it's easy to feel detached. For example, think about your own life. If it were only told through dates and a few names of important people in your life, it would feel factually accurate, but it would definitely lack the heart of who you were and your life and the complexity of your life. That's what this book did a really good job of doing. It helped make World War II something very vast and complex, more humanized and understandable. And I want to jump into the illustrations because I think it did an excellent job of amplifying the themes here. Firstly, a more generic overview. The illustrations seem to be digitally drawn, but it has a unique style that makes it hard to tell where the digital ends and where the traditional begins. What gives away the digital nature are the background textures, for example, the trees or the brickwork. If you've worked with digital art before, you can recognize the use of specific texturizing brushes. These can make artwork feel a little less hand-rendered. That said, the costume design was incredibly done. The illustrator obviously has done their research on the fashion of the era. The color palette too felt not only appropriate for the time period, but also emotionally resonant. A particular color that stood out was red. From childhood to adulthood, red is a quiet visual thread that follows our main character, first seen in his bow tie, his shoes, and later a scarf. These touches of red help us identify with the warm and sweet nature of our main character, but then we're introduced to the darker red. It's the same shade, but darker in the sense of like darker. This red appears on Nazi flags and a leash of a German soldier dog. So it's the exact same shade, but the thing it attaches itself to, they're entirely polar. So it felt like a deliberate way to show how deeply the war invaded the personal, everyday lives of civilians. But thankfully, the book doesn't end there with these shades at war with each other. In the final pages, a third kind of red appears. Again, the same shade. This third red appears on the ice tray that was used as the Hanukkah as they were hiding. It also appears on the clothes worn by the grandchildren. I thought it was a way of expressing that the red of truth and freedom is the one that did endure. Maybe I'm just overthinking it, but I really did love how color told its own story within a story. So there you have it, guys. Those were the 3 ice cream themed books that I picked for the summer month. I know not all of them were summery and lighthearted, but the purpose of this channel is to introduce people to books that they wouldn't commonly see on the shelves at Barnes& and Noble or the main pages on Amazon. So I hope that you guys enjoyed these summaries, and I hope it inspires you to look into some newer kids books. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your summer, and watch out for some spooky Halloween fall content coming your way. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye!